Life is short. Be yourself. Love what you do. Don't take it too seriously.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The first legend we have right here is Ali, and obviously this conference is about you, you, a young, hungry, ambitious student entrepreneur trying to be the mover, the shaker, and to be the mover and the shaker and the big innovator. You have to be willing to take the unorthodox route, and that I think is Ali's story because he studied at LSE, one of the very highly represented schools at this conference. He studied law, but after finishing his degree in law, he obviously didn't go the traditional route. He joined a VC-backed startup. He dealt with London and the London housing crisis by converting unused quote unquote airspace, and that is something he will talk about quite a lot. And now he is an ambassador for entrepreneurship, sort of bridging London, UK, and the Gulf region. So Ali, first of all, thank you so much for accepting the invitation and your willingness to speak and bestow your knowledge on us. I will mute myself, turn my camera off, because you, my friend, are much more interesting than I am. And students, really pay attention. This guy knows what he's talking about. Thank you, Ali.
Thanks so much, Oliver, and thanks to the whole adventure team as well for organizing this fantastic e-conference. I wish I had something like this back when I was studying, because it would have been so helpful to figure out what you want to do in life and what your interests are, what options are open to you. So hi everyone, I'm Ali Amin, and just like Oliver said, I think he was a bit too nice to me. I graduated from the LSE with a law degree in 2019. For the past couple of years, I've been working in a startup London-based property developer called Apex Airspace. And the idea of Apex Airspace is we use modular construction to build units of housing on top of existing buildings in London. So we were directly addressing the housing crisis we have in the UK. And I was in London, but when the pandemic hit, I moved back to Dubai, where I grew up, and I've been working remotely ever since. And while I've been here, and as Oliver said, I'm also an ambassador for LSE Generate, which is LSE's entrepreneurship department, where I work closely with the university to support funders and founders that are based in the region. I think there's more than 300 of them. So it's been quite exciting. So the idea of the few minutes I have with you today is I'll be sharing my personal journey about my experiences about doing law at LSE, not qualifying as a lawyer, joining a startup which has a good social purpose, and also working with the LSE in Dubai. And hopefully that can guide those who are making career decisions now. And I always prefer these talks to be quite interactive and dynamic and not just one guy talking at you for ages. So if you have any questions or comments, just pop them in the chat. I'll be sure to have. So just a bit about me. I was born in Jeddah and I was raised in Dubai as the child of a first generation entrepreneur. So for me, entrepreneurship was always a long term goal, because I grew up with conversations around the dinner table about SME problems. And I learned the importance of taking responsibility for your future and being proactive. That's why I decided I wanted to get some experience, which I'd never had in my life before, and no one in my family had. So that's why I chose to go to London, the cosmopolitan center of the world, uh, one could argue. And I chose to do a law degree because I thought it would be a good foundation. It's something I could build on top of. It'd give you good commercial exposure. And if your venture that does not work out, it would be good to have something to fall back on. So that was my idea when I chose law. And I remember when I started at the LSE, there's a huge culture of working in a corporate job, corporate role, VAC scheme, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. LSE is extremely notorious for that. And I always remember not being fully sold on the corporate ladder idea. On the first day of the law degree, I remember asking the director of the course, does everyone who studies law have to go into law? Like, is that the established career path? And I was surprised when he shared that at the LSE, of the graduates who get jobs after graduation, only 70% went into law, 30% did not even go into law at all. And of the 70% who went into law, 5 years down the line, half of them left the practice of law. So that opened my mind to the idea of using the transferable skills you learn in your degree and working elsewhere. The things I liked about law was It gives you a good problem solving foundation, and it gives you skills that you would need to work in a startup or in a corporate environment or in business, and analytical thinking, clear communication, looking at a problem and breaking it down to its parts and seeing it from different points of view. And I think this is true for many other degrees as well. Like I have lots of friends who did medicine and engineering and did not end up becoming doctors or engineers, but worked in startups and built things. And they all say the skills they learned during their degrees was what got them there. So my number one tip that I want to impart onto everyone who's listening is being proactive and taking initiative. To me, this is like the secret sauce of success. The main thing I want people to take away with them when they leave, you can learn to be lucky by putting yourself in the right place at the right time. And that's done just by taking the initiative and going out to a lot of places where you think could add value a lot of the time, and eventually you will start making connections, and those connections will lead to opportunities in the field that you're interested in, and those opportunities maybe you would not have foreseen them in the past. So that's what I used to pivot into entrepreneurship. For me, the main thing about university is the access it gives you, and extracurriculars for me added more value than even the knowledge you get in your degree. So you should always try and think outside the box to do that. So, for example, I think entrepreneurialism manifests in many ways, not necessarily starting a business straight out of university. If you're a tier 4 student in the UK, like I was, and technically you're not allowed to be self-employed or engage in business activity, and our university was quite strict on it. So you have to find other ways to be entrepreneurial. So for me, that manifested in the Middle East Society. I grew up in Dubai, went to London, went to the LSE's Middle East Society, and turns out there wasn't really one. So along with a friend, I decided to go and become the president of that. And I made a plan to, we chatted, we made a plan to go to the society, we recruited a team, we executed events, eventually hosted the Palestinian ambassador to the UK. And then afterwards, I realized that without even thinking about it, we were building skills that you would need in a startup anyways, identifying growth potential, making a strategy, recruiting a team, mentoring them, leading them to execute, interviewing people to identify pain points, customer validation. So these skills you can learn in different ways as well. And for me, I realized I didn't want to go into corporate law as a career. I spoke to a lot of alumni who would say that law firms prefer their people to specialize in little cubby holes and not to rock the boat too much. I wanted to get an experience, so I reached out to a law firm in Dubai that was run by a VC and was focused on SMEs and entrepreneurs and incubators. So working there, I realized that I wanted to practice law, but in the venture community, in and around startups, not just doing pure commercial contracts in a huge firm. And this is something that I think people should really think about. I remember speaking to Martin Lewis, who's, I guess, one of the most famous LSE founders when he came to the LSE for a talk. So Martin Lewis is the founder of MoneySavingExpert.com, and he founded that website for £100, and he sold it a decade later for £87 million. And his advice to me, which I would like to share with all the young people, students and recent graduates in the audience, is you don't necessarily have to start a company straight out of uni. You can go and work on a different company, in a startup, in a corporate, work there for a year or two, and learn from them the best practices and what to do and what not to do, and then use that to increase your chances of success when you do your own thing. By the way, if I sound really weird, I've got a bit of a flu, so please forgive me for that. And alongside that, being out and being proactive is how you get is how you get these opportunities. 75% of jobs in the world are estimated to be filled by the hidden job market. So it's jobs you might not see in corporates, might not see postings, but if you keep going to events and you're positive and you're persistent, eventually that will lead to the right introductions. That's how I got my role at Apex Airspace. Through my network, as someone who I met at an event, knew of this company called Apex Airspace. And I didn't have a strong background in real estate, but I still reached out to them and said, I'd like to give it a shot. And I was surprised when I got a phone call the next day and asked to interview with the CEO, and was told to start as an intern on the following Monday. So I'll try to bit about what Apex Airspace is. I'll see if I can share my screen. I don't want to do a huge presentation because they can get a bit boring, but this hopefully should share some knowledge. So the basic premise is London's population is said to exceed 10 million over the next 10 years. Obviously, everyone knows, it's no secret that there's a huge housing crisis in the UK. There's a lot of pressure for people for cities to increase housing and expand outwards. And the primary cost in buying or renting a home isn't the home itself, but it's the land upon which it's built. And it's incredibly difficult to buy that land. So development can get really costly. And that's why supply has not kept up with demand. So the idea of Apex Airspace is why not build on top of existing housing, but instead of expanding horizontally, expand vertically. So you can see here on my screen, there was a Apex Airspace commissioned a study into the potential for airspace homes above public sector buildings in London. So public sector is important because in London, it's governed by several different local councils and local boroughs, each of which will have thousands and thousands of council housing, which they use to provide affordable housing to their residents. So these councils already have the houses, they already have the land. But if we can help them add a story or two, and add in additional housing, that could go a long way towards solving the housing problem. So there's a potential for 60,000 new public sector buildings in London, which would which would solve 42% of the London plan target, which is the Mayor of London's plan for expanding housing in the city. And in terms of market opportunity, it's a 54 billion pound opportunity. So it's to me, it was quite interesting to work in a company like this. The main reason is because I like their sustainable method to use an untapped asset class and build something new where there's nothing there before. So you're adding value to the whole building because we renovate and we renovate the building, communal works, and you're creating more housing. So it's a win for the residents, it's a win for the council, it's a win for the politicians who come out with these plans, and it's a win for the developer as well. So I like the social purpose aspect of the job. And in terms of actually working in a startup, it's really fast moving. So there's a steep learning curve, and because as everyone knows in a startup, you wear different hats. So it's not in a corporate where you have one fixed job description and you do this and then that's it. No, in a startup, because the team is so small, you have endless opportunities for growth. So whatever the business needs on the day is what you'll be focusing on. And if it's a small company, you can also kind of shape your journey as to which area you want to focus on more. So for me, when I joined the company, I worked in the construction team because at that point, the need of the company was we needed legal documents to appoint contractors. Because the process is we have a new business team that goes out and acquires sites, has negotiations with landowners. It could be councils, it can be private, retail. So we do the due diligence surveys on the building and on the area, saying, is it even viable to build something? Then we have the legal team, which will organize the legal documents and agreements for us to build something on top of that building, what the nature of the deal is. We'll have a construction team which will appoint all the different contractors and consultants for the different roles of the job. We have a finance team which manages funding for the project. We have a marketing team to help us market our to people who want to eventually buy them, if that's the structure of the deal. So I worked in the construction team, and it was really a great learning experience because the exposure you get working in a startup can be a lot more than working in a corporate. I remember we had our law firm which we used for advising us on these deals. We got a partner at that law firm to spend a day in the office. So I would say with him 9 hours a day, once a week, and go through all these different legal problems that we had. And I remember thinking, this person is a highly experienced partner in a real estate law firm. If I was a trainee in his law firm, I would not get the same amount of face time and exposure to him as I am on the client side. It was really incredible just thinking about that. So I did that. Then I got some experience working on the acquisition side with the new business team. So going out, finding sites to acquire. I'm going with people who are more experienced in the team, acquisitions people, negotiating terms with them, and getting an idea and a sense of what works and what doesn't. I also got some experience working with the finance and marketing team. But ultimately, we decided to focus on was the legal team, focusing on the funding aspect. So in a property developer, obviously, a big thing is funding. So Apex Airspace, because we're a pioneer in this space, we've got 28 million pounds of funding from the Mayor of London, the Mayor of London, as in the Greater London Authority, from Homes England, which is the branch of the UK government that supports housing for the whole country of England, and also from private investors being BGF, formerly known as the Business Growth Fund, which are the UK's largest SME investor. So my role in that capacity has been working through our funding agreements, using my legal knowledge, but actually applying it in a commercial sense. And it's actually really, really incredible because you get to see the real-time impact of your work. So I'm just showing on my screen now some developments that we've done as penthouses on top of existing buildings. The one you're looking at now is called Anthony and Roderick, which is a 30-unit scheme in Southwark. It's owned by a housing association, and we're able to work with that association and the council to build 30 more units that would not otherwise be there. So we're adding in value that no one else thought to add, but we're the ones who can provide that expertise. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I enjoyed working in a startup more than a corporate because I think it's less informal, it's less rigid, it's less predictable, and it's more exciting. So even as someone junior in the team, you have a lot more autonomy to do what you want and get your teeth involved. But there are cons as well. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing and a curse. The lack of structure gives you the flexibility, but also means you have to take a lot more initiative, and you have to kind of build your own experience because there's not a formal graduate training program. There's no formal rotations. It's really you think, okay, I can add value here, I can do that, and then going out and doing it. And if you're the type of person where you like to go and get involved, then working in a startup would really, really be good. And because it can give you knowledge and experience and training that no degree can and no experience can. So that's what I've been doing ever since I graduated. I The advice I have for people who work in startups or corporates who think about working in startups is to always invest in yourself, always try and upskill yourself and see what do you not know about and where can you jump in and add more and add. I want to do that myself. So last year in 2020, I was accepted onto the Masters in Entrepreneurship course at Cambridge because I really thought that's something that you can do. It was a part-time course. I thought that's something that I could use to add value to my work, and so I can have a better insight and better commercial knowledge of what issues. Like unfortunately, due to COVID, I had to defer that, and I came back to Dubai. And but while I've been here, I've been involved with LSE Generate. Just to talk slightly on that, so LSE Generate is the LSE's Department for Entrepreneurship, which supports entrepreneurs throughout different stages of their journey. When I was at university, when I was studying, this wasn't a big opportunity. This wasn't really big. I did not know about LSE Generate. I didn't know about alternative careers below. But now it's great to see the universities are focusing more and more on this aspect. So I'd really encourage people to get involved and see with your university what can they offer you, because a lot of universities can offer networking, mentorship, funding competitions. If you want to start a business, they can help you throughout that process. And if there isn't something already established, then you can go in and take the initiative and set it up, which is what I did. There wasn't something in Dubai for my university here, so I got in touch with them, and eventually we started building it out. And actually, last week in October, we launched our first hub, international hub for the region in Dubai. And there's 300 people in Dubai who are founders and funders affiliated with the university. That's a massive opportunity to grow and learn and develop. And I think I know I'm almost running out of my time. My experiences have taught me some values and some principles that I always listen. I think would take me farther towards where I want to go, and I want to share those with you guys who are listening, and maybe that will help you in some way. So the first principle and first rule is to always be a resource. So offer help, connect other people, over deliver, go above and beyond, do things you don't have to do. Even for me, if there weren't so many wonderful and generous people along my own journey, I would not be where I am. And I always try and pay that forward. So if you do that, if you give to the community, you'll get a lot more in return as well. Along with being a resource, is being resourceful as well. So be scrappy, take initiative, and find a way. If you're a student, you're a David in the world of Goliaths. If you're a startup, you're going against a lot of people who are a lot more well established. But that's the fun thing about building a company and working in a startup. You get to band together and make what people think is the impossible. You make it possible and you make it happen with nothing but desperate passion and creativity. And if you have the will to do it, you can really, really go quite far paired with the right resources and the right now. Also, optimize for growth is the third principle. So be a student and always keep learning, always invest in your development, no matter what your age is, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what degree you're doing, if you're doing a degree or not, or no matter where you are in the world, always look at the value you can add. So it's looking at your potential over your credentials, aptitude over pedigree. If you learn to learn, just to better yourself, I think you'll be set for life and you'll be able to be successful in whatever field you choose to go into. And lastly, think long term as well. Be patient, invest in your relationships. You can't build a long term future on short term thinking. So if you think about, well, so if I work in this corporate job, I'll make this much money in the next couple of years. Yes, but think 5, 10 years from now, what will what value would that add? So in the end, I think all of us, we're just building the car, the vehicle we're driving through life in. So life is short. Be yourself. Love what you do. Don't take it too seriously. And if you want to get involved with something and you really feel you'd enjoy it, then just take the risk and go for it. That's the main thing. Just go for it. If nothing else, you'll be where you are. But that experience you learn from trying something and failing, that's something that most people will not have. So I think that's the main value that I wanted to impart on you guys today.
What can I say? I possibly cannot top that. You might be sitting in front of your computers thinking, hey, did I listen to maybe like a 60, 70-year-old philosopher? Or who is this magic? Listen, this guy, he's class of 2019. So it is incredible the wisdom you have for your age, your stage of the career, the experience you've had. Thank you very much. I feel like basically
Thanks so much, man.
All of the questions I might have had. So absolutely fantastic.
I think that's the main thing, man, because life will give you problems no matter what you're doing. So I was 2019, so when I was graduating, you had COVID, you had Brexit, no, not COVID, sorry, you had Brexit, and that was the main issue. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Class of 2020, you have COVID. And the next year, there'll be some other problem that's happening that you can't predict. But if you're positive and you're persistent and you reach out to people and you keep going for it, opportunities will come up. Yeah, and I'm sure of it.
And the human brain has this special condition, even when there are no problems officially, we will create some artificially.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And that's the thing as well. If you have a question and you're not sure what to do, reach out to people. A lot of people are incredibly busy, but if you're someone who's driven and you're a student, people are incredibly generous with their time. Like they will help you throughout their journey. So I think hopefully that gives you some motivation.
Thank you, Ali.